See
Go.
it now.
Yep, you're good.
Great. Well, thanks so much, Ryan. And that was actually fascinating to see that overview and to realize what an incredible resource you have there for those of us interested in a particular research item. I've created a list just from watching your overview of some things I'd like to ask you. But on to our collection that we hope will add value to not only those who are here today, but those who might be watching this through the recording, and that is the Arizona Town Hall collection. So what I'm going to do is I'll use this PowerPoint to give a little bit of an overview of who we are, and so that you know what might be in the collection that might be of use. And I would welcome any questions throughout the presentation so I can be as helpful and interactive as possible to those of you who might be interested in using this as a resource. So I'll start out with this first slide. We've been around since 1962. So for 64 years, we've not only been recording history, but creating it. And that really is where there is an immense amount of value in the reports, not only on the topic itself and where things were at that particular time in Arizona's history, but also the people who were involved. I'm going to touch on that a little bit as I go through a little bit of overview of who we are and how we have transformed as a nonprofit through the years so that you can have more awareness of what's in this collection of reports. So I'm just going to start with this cover picture. Of course, this is a more recent photos of the diversity of people and leadership involved in Arizona Town Hall, which means also the diversity and wealth of information that's in their reports. But let me go ahead and start with what our mission is. And this mission is reflected in all of those reports and gives kind of a feel for how the information was gathered and put together. Our mission has been about educating, whether through content from experts on the topic that we're taking on. If it's water, then water experts, but also education from each other by bringing people together to converse and learn, connect, and engage with each other on how to address and solve a problem. Throughout the reports, if you were to look at them historically and read them, you will see that there were a diversity of participants who from around Arizona who were a part of creating those reports. That makes it a little bit interesting in and of itself. The core values of Town Hall are reflected in those reports. It's about engaging all voices. So throughout history, again, that might mean bringing in tribal voices, voices from different parts of Arizona to look at policy issues. And historically, and even now, that is not always the goal of gatherings on how to solve policy issues. So that makes it a unique reflection as well throughout history. And I'm just going to leave the core values here to briefly look at. I'm not going to spend too much time on them, except to say that any of our gatherings, which were reported and recorded in these reports, were done in a way where all those different perspectives were given voice and then were captured as part of those reports. Especially in the older reports when we did two statewide town halls a year as opposed to the model we use now. You can also see a list of participants who were discussing that topic, and it reads like a who's who of Arizona formative leaders and can give you an insight into what was happening in real time just looking at the list of participants. Here is just a collage reflecting different reports and interactions from throughout the years. I think it's telling that the older photos are in black and white, and you see some at the Grand Canyon. Until we stopped doing the 3-day statewide town hall, there was at least one gathering at the Grand Canyon every year, and that was really a hallmark for Arizona Town Hall. I'm going to go ahead and move to the start of Arizona Town Hall as its history. It was started in 1962, and it was really done as a way to bring this emerging, growing state together and for the leaders to try to figure out how do we plan and strategize to move forward as a state. And I'll add, it was done at a time where there was value in coming together to address the trickiest issues that were coming up for this rapidly growing, fairly new emerging state at that time. The report that you see here was the first town hall on taxes, and you see some of the original participants from there. And this was really a time period where they were figuring out how do we bring people together to solve problems and how do we do it in a way that will help shape the policy and shape the state. The 1970s continued to really make an impact with these gatherings. This is just a little bit of a reflection of all that happened during that decade and some of the things that went on to impact your daily life right now. And I'm going to just highlight one of them, but there are probably 1,000. I deliberately have as part of the screenshot down the lower right corner, one of the officers of the Arizona Town Hall, which was also known as the Arizona Academy. You may have heard of her name before, Sandra D. O'Connor. She was the secretary of the board at that time, and she attended this Arizona Town Hall on court systems in 1973. At the time, she was in the legislature. Now, I assume everyone watching knows she went on to become Supreme Court Justice O'Connor. But what you may not know is that as a result of this particular town hall on the court systems and the fact that she was very involved in at the legislature, she, along with many others, carried the flag, if you will, to the legislature to adopt what now governs our court systems, the merit selection system. So I'm a recovering trial attorney, so courts matter a lot to me. I will tell you when I talk to my friends from across the country that our state court system is one of the best in the country, and it is because of the merit selection system. That came out of this discussion at the statewide town hall at this time. And the way these great ideas turn into laws is that you get a collection and movement of people who have been informed and who take those ideas forward and turn them into either state laws, local laws, or even changes within their community. So if you were interested, for example, in our court system and the history of it, this would be a document that you would want to look at. There's some other things I find really interesting historically. If you look at how people were named as attending these programs, women were usually listed by their husband's name or with reference to their husband. I find that very interesting. Like, actually, even on this one, you may not be able to see it on your screen. Sandra Mrs. John O'Connor. Her husband's name is part of her listing, then her title, Majority Leader, Arizona State Senate. You don't see that same thing with men. Why do I bring this up? Different layers of history that are reflected in real time just by looking at these reports. By the way, that lower left corner, that's John, or I'm sorry, not John Kyle, Bruce Babbitt. John Kyle also was very involved with the Arizona Town Hall. And the other thing that you see with Arizona leaders, especially those that went on to either be in the court system, we have a lot who went on to become judges one way or the other, federal, state, is that a lot of their leadership in how to solve problems came out of really this experience at the Arizona Town Hall and the model of how to create consensus and to work together. So, oh, in fact, there's John Kyle with this particular slide, and we even have him on video talking about how the Arizona Town Hall process shaped him not only as a lawyer, but in the U.S. Congress and how he went about making deals and getting people together to solve problems. So while these reports are really useful to look at specific topics, leadership of the day, to see how maybe, Ryan, thanks for showing that collection in advance. If you're interested in looking at laws and what was the story behind the laws based on the legislative archives, you might compare those. Let's say you were looking at the court system. Now look at that town hall on court systems that happened right before some of those laws were passed in the legislature, and you get a much deeper, richer idea of how the impetus behind these laws was developed through these different gatherings. So this is almost like your speed dating version of the value of looking at these reports over the years. So I'm going to, move through pretty quickly. And again, if there's questions, feel free to ask me either now or later. 1990s continuing to really create this leadership with a more of an emphasis, and this even became emphasized later, of bringing in youth, bringing youth to attend the town halls, which really had a lot of impact on their future careers. At that time, it was generally maybe the ASU, U of A, NAU student body presidents, and some of youth holding different positions at that level. Many of them actually continued to be involved not only in their communities but in town hall and came back as board chairs. One, Hank Peck, who is still in Tucson, an incredible community leader there. He attended his first town hall as NAU's president, later became our board chair, and is a living example of talking about how that experience impacted him and impacted everything he did for the state of Arizona. This particular slide, we have another youthful picture of a young man there in the bottom left corner who attended when he was in college, and he is our current board chair. So, the impact these different things have. And I deliberately put this report cover on this slide here, Youth at Risk. It was the May 1994 Arizona Town Hall. I'll use this as two examples that came out of this particular event. One is that one of the recorders listed, let's see, oh, it's not actually on that slide, didn't show up, was me. I was a volunteer recorder at this particular town hall and became so enamored with the process that it was my favorite nonprofit to give time and money to until eventually I went on to become its president. But also something else I wanted to use this as an example for. There are so many ways that these events created change in Arizona that I don't even know them all. I hear them randomly. I found out from um, someone who attended this town hall that he and some others decided we need to come up with a way to raise money for these programs that are really great for our youth who are at risk, but government funding is too roller coaster. They don't know when it will come or not. And there at the back room of the town hall, they said, let's do a license plate. So that license plate, if you've probably seen, it shouldn't hurt to be a child with those fun handprints, that came out of one of these town halls. And I only learned that because I was talking to him and he had one of these license plates in his office. And he said, well, that came out of a town hall. So I'll move on to the 2000s. You see at least one more picture there at the Grand Canyon. You see continuing involvement of college students, including community college students here attending those programs. That's a picture of the community college students there with the governor that you see on that bottom left-hand corner. The other thing that comes up as you just look through the titles and the topics of the reports over the years, it will show you what was rising to the top for Arizona leaders as the most important topic to discuss. Because I don't choose the topics. No one person chooses the topics. They were chosen and are chosen from surveys from around the state at the time. So even if you just look through the list of topics over the years, that gives you a snapshot as to what Arizona leaders from around the state thought was the most important thing to address. Here in the spring of 2006, it was the rapid growth and development of Arizona Town Hall, and specifically, do we have enough water, roads, and infrastructure to support Arizona's rapid growth? Here we are at that point again, right? Some topics need to be continually addressed. 2010s, there were some major changes happening that reflected the culture, the world we live in. The town hall started out with two of these statewide convenings where only about 100 to 150 people were invited to attend. So a small group of people would take a deep dive into these topics, and then that would influence policy. There became this movement within the town hall, and I'm proud to say I was a part of it because it matters a lot to me, of how can we have more voices involved in deciding, number one, what to talk about, number two, how to address and solve the issue. Not just those at the leadership ranks, if you will, but those who have just as much wisdom and value and input in solving a problem, who may not have reached, the CEO level. So if we're doing a town hall on criminal justice, maybe we should talk to people involved with the criminal justice system. And in fact, that's what we started doing, including on that topic, taking the programs inside the prisons. Incredibly reflective. So we started moving more towards these community town halls. We're now, and I'll just go ahead and move ahead to the 2020s. Here we are in the last 5 to 6 years, where we now do community town halls around the state. And instead of 100, 150 people weighing in on a topic, it's thousands. And people from all different corners of the state, different ages, different geographies, different perspectives, but still the mission remains the same. I mentioned some of the items, specifically the court system, that came out of the ideas that came out of the town hall that went on to influence Arizona. There's many others that were where ideas were germinated and connections were made to move things forward. The Department of Revenue, the lots of things involving water. I won't spend too much time on those. Criminal justice, transportation, the highways that surround Maricopa County, specifically came out of a transportation town hall and the tax to make that happen. Lots and lots of specific things have come out. I like to say the most important aspect is not those laws and policies, but it is having the experience and practice of how to solve a problem collectively, how to have that experience and practice of developing creative ideas that work for the entire community, the state, and now even the region. We've expanded our efforts and now regularly work with our friends from Mexico on how we can solve problems that are regional. So the number one really item for me that you can see reflected, whether in those reports or the impact, is the creation of informed and engaged leaders who go on to take that wisdom and use it in many ways, whether it's Justice O'Connor, who was known for developing consensus on the Supreme Court, Jon Kyl, who was noted when he served time in Congress for solving problems by bringing the different parties together, or all the other leadership here in Arizona and beyond who have utilized their exposure to this process in the incredible work that they do. So there we are. Happy to answer any questions. I'll stop sharing so I can see if there's any in the chat.